In this video, I'll show you how I transform a simple watercolor practice into these bright, beautiful flowers that I make into a card and a bookmark. So let's get into it.
So this was inspired by first watercolor practice I did, and I'll link that right away up here. They were flowers in a vase. Same but different. Here I used a template to get the different size circles that would be the flowers. I also don't have much of a composition as opposed to the other one that were flowers in a vase with a background because I just want a lot of pattern, thinking I'm going to cut them down or cut them out eventually. I've wet my paper. Here I have some background and I'm sort of going around where the flowers will be. On this side on the left, a little narrower, I'm thinking maybe this will be a bookmark. This is a vague idea at this point, and I'm just going in and filling in where I've traced the circles very lightly in pencil. And you can see it's bleeding a little bit, but that's okay. It'll come together a little bit down the road. I'll explain my supplies a little bit further on too. I'll show you what I used. When I look back at this, I could have made the flowers a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, varied it a little bit. I seem to follow, the circle I made with the template. But, there are always notes for next time, trying to improve. And I'll fill them in a little bit more. They'll be different once I'm done, but when I first look at it, I'm thinking, oh, too much the same. Note for next time. But if anything, I just want to encourage you to try. Watercolor it's just a lot of fun. I do work in acrylic. I am an abstract acrylic artist, but I love to fiddle with watercolors. I don't have a big set. I will show you, as I said further along in the video, a set of 10 colors. And I like the portability of watercolor too. You can, easily take it with you if you have some paper, some watercolor paper, a book, you have, a bit of water, your brushes. It's really easy to do, and it's just a lot of fun. I just find it has a beautiful effect. The bigger section I did wet ahead of time. Can't remember if I mentioned that. So I have a bit of a background. The one on the left, it's just bleeding out a little bit because I wet it. And I'm sticking pretty much to the same colors as I used in the previous practice that I did a video. So warm colors, orange, red, there will be some yellow, and I'll go in with a little bit of blue and a little bit of violet. I've also learned to be very forgiving and not to pressure myself. I say that I still do. I'm a recovering perfectionist, as I heard someone say. But, I have a vague idea in the back of my mind, but I'm always open to the fact that it might not turn out like that. This might just become collage. It might just be, a practice that I'll stick in a sketchbook, and that's okay. It doesn't have to always turn out exactly the way you think. And the beauty of this is you can just easily start over. Oh, you can see up in the left, that is the other practice I did with the flower. So I think I have it there just to keep in mind what colors I'm going to use. And there's also, you can see the sheet on top. That's some other just little practices of flowers I did. The blue one, actually towards the bottom, I did using a fan brush, and I really like the effect. It sort of looked like thistle. But anyway, I digress. And my paper is just taped down to a silicone baking mat or silicone baking mat. Yes, you heard that right. I've never used them to bake, but I like the fact that it provides a smooth surface, and underneath that is a piece of cardboard. So I can easily turn them, as you can see, so I can get to where I want to go with my paintbrush. And if I have to move it, just move it aside and let it dry because I'm doing something else. It's easily mobile as well. Here I'm going to go in with some green, thinking I'm doing a green background. That's not going to work out, spoiler alert, but I am insistent and stubborn. So I will keep trying to do it and then realize that's just not what I want. It's just, I think, bringing in too many colors and just looking too fussy. I'm trying to do, I think, very, very small dots, like they would be like some sort of very small flower in the background or something like baby's breath. So I just wet my brush with some water, wet the paper, and then just mop up the watercolor. It still shows a little bit, but by the end, it won't be too bad. And I'm sticking with the same colors here for the center of the flowers. So the red, orange, and yellow are getting the blue, and the blue is going to get some yellow, and I'm not going to fuss more than that over them. I tend to paint my flowers very abstract. This is like not quite abstract for me, but I won't fuss, I won't try to draw petals in there or something. I just wanted a lot. And as I said, I don't really have a design composition here. Usually I tend towards a diagonal, lower left to upper right, but here I just wanted more of a pattern, of a filled in pattern that I can, as I said, cut out maybe and transform into a card and a bookmark. And while I'm going along doing this, I wanted to remind you, if you're wondering about my supplies, I send out an updated supplies list a few times a year through my newsletter. That's on my website, rosemarymichelle.com. So just scroll down to the bottom of the page and fill that in. I send out a newsletter maybe once a month. There are discount codes for my Etsy. I said coupons in the last video. I sounded so old, but discount codes, and the videos release early there. So this will be out through the newsletter with a link before it releases public on YouTube. So this is the fun part, and this is the cool part, and this is what really elevates the flowers one extra, or a few extra levels, I should say. This is gold mica, and I am just loving this stuff. It is a beautiful gold. First of all, sometimes they're reddish, sometimes they're too pale. They're a champagne gold. This is just a beautiful gold. It is thick, it is opaque, not too thick that you can't put it on with a paintbrush. I'm using what was sold as a set of rigger brushes. They are off Amazon, but they are not long enough, and that's my big fat head in the way. But I find the bristles aren't long enough for me to really consider them rigger brushes. However, they do work really well here to outline, and this gold mica spreads beautifully. I've tried it with my glass pens. It's a little too thick, and I can't seem to get it to work in terms of writing with it like in ink, but maybe I'll try again. Maybe it's just I have the wrong pen. If you have suggestions, really please let me know in the comments. But this is what's really going to give it that lovely effect. It also outlines the flowers and makes them a little more distinct from the next one. It gives them a pop of color as well. There's nothing like gold to just really make things beautiful, I guess. Gold makes everything beautiful. Who knew? And I am going to do all of the flowers. I'm going to splatter a little bit across too, and I'm going to go in some of the spaces and do some gold dots. I think what I started to do with the green, but decided to do it with the gold. And another thing just to remember, this is super speeded up just as a question of time, but I actually take my time doing this. I go slowly and it is very relaxing. I find it pleasant to do. It's a pleasant step in the whole process is enjoyable, but this, is a pleasant step to do. Just turning it however I need to get to the flower that I want to outline. So just keep in mind all those moments, when you see, I won't talk about everybody else's video, but I'll say for mine, that I'm just sitting there, as I always say, with my mouth hanging open, wondering what to do next. Those are edited out. So often we watch, we think, oh my gosh, this person is so inspired. It's just this continual flow of stuff. No, no, sometimes there are great big pauses where I just sit there and wonder what to do. Sometimes I have to let things sit, and I think my subconscious works on it while I'm not in my studio. So I did put down some gold splatters. I find it really easier to do that by tapping the paintbrush onto another paintbrush. Sometimes splatters go all over. I've goofed up sometimes, with the control issues. Here I'm using, this is a Kuretake Starry Colors. It is 6 shades of gold. Oh, this is what I'm doing the dots with. So I'm using this. It is watercolor as well. And a little further on, I'll say 5 gold and 1 silver, but they consider the silver white gold. So another nice set, not as thick as the gold mica, but really, really nice to use. I do have a video on an Amazon haul, and I'll link that up here where I go through that product and a few other things I bought off Amazon and just give you my thoughts on that. I put way too much tape and then I have to figure out which layer is the top layer. I don't worry too much if it tears or what the border is. I didn't really seal the border with medium or anything because I'm going to cut it down anyway.
So I've cut these down. My original idea was to cut these into smaller squares and make a card with them juxtaposed. I still think I'm going to do that. I'd probably just give myself a template. I wanted to make one into a bookmark as well. That's why when it was originally taped down, there was a larger square and a more rectangular space. Standard size of a bookmark, I learned, is 2 inches by 6 inches, maybe 8 inches. This is a little bit wider. It's about 2 3/4, but I have to keep in mind that I do have some pretty big motifs with these flowers. I did get rid of, though, some orange and blue flowers that were sitting here right along the edge, or an orange and mauve. They just didn't look great. So that's the great thing. Once you take off the tape and you cut it down, you get usually a better version. You can sort of weed out the stragglers that aren't cooperating. So I've come up to this size. I could maybe take a shred off, but then I hesitate because I'm really cutting down, as I said, on these larger motif of flowers. I'm going to try to find some cardstock. I'm going to edge this in gold as well, just keeping with the same theme. Don't want to add in too many new colors or too many new metallics. And I'm going to make a template, as I said, for this, and we'll cut it down and see what we get finally. What I used in this video, a sheet from this watercolor pad, 140 pounds, holds up quite well. Liked that. Might redo some on 300-pound watercolor paper. I did a little bit with this Kuretake Starry Colors. It is 5 shades of gold and a shade of silver. All these are listed on my supplies list that you can get by signing up to my newsletter. Just go on my site, rosemarymichelle.com. I'll link all that in the description. And you can get the whole list of everything I've used so far in the videos, or most everything I've used so far. If something's not there, just drop me something in the comments and I'll add it on. I didn't really use that this much, but this is a really nice set of watercolors. A little less intense, though, than this, and I did use a lot of this. The Brilliant Gold Mica, and I believe this is Kuretake as well. This is super intense gold. Really like this. I'll get asked about my watercolors. This is Ancient, it is Pelican, and I've had this, I am not kidding, probably 20 years, and I can't even open it. And it is 2, 4, 6, 8, I said 10, I think, on my supplies list. It's 12 colors. Had these for a really long time. I'm not a watercolor artist. I don't have a huge set of watercolors, but this is what I use, and this is what has worked so far. So, brushes. This is a set that I got ages ago, and there's more than 2 brushes to this. There's about 6. Broil and Lengical. I'm not saying it right, and I can't read it because it's almost completely faded off. But I used these 2, believe they are watercolor brushes. I just threw them in with everything else. I should probably put my watercolor brushes separately. And for like even the more detailed work, XGT Art Supplies. This was a set also off of Amazon, and it is on my supplies list.
So because I am maniacally fussy, I am just edging this with a gold Sharpie so the white edge doesn't show. Now that I've got it cut down to the right size, it's really funny for me to look at that Sharpie because I cannot find it in real life anymore. So there it is in the video, but can't find it. And this is my little template that I'm going to use for the flowers. So I'm just moving it around, the flowers for the card. So I'm moving it around, just looking what would be a nice square.
Okay, we're in the final stretch here. I cut these down to, I believe, 2 by 2. I made a little template, 2.5 by 2.5, and I made just a little template. These are, before I glue this on, I will just show you, and this is on my supplies list that goes out through my newsletter. These are 5 by 7 cards. They are, don't talk and make noise at the same time. They are off of Amazon. Invitation cards and envelopes. A7 is 5 by 7. And there are 25 white and 25 brown. I've chosen the brown. I find the white I don't work as much with, but I eventually will. It's a bright white, and I find often, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to suit what I'm doing. And let me grab one just to give you an idea. I just find this looks a little too white for what this is. Plus, I backed it in black. I thought of red. I thought of using red cardstock, but it seemed like I was trying too hard to match a whole bunch of reds. So I opted for the black, just a very, very fine line. You don't even have to do that. So these I'll use at some point in another type of card making. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was, oh, when you do order those, make sure they come with the envelopes unless you don't want the envelopes, because sometimes they do sell them on Amazon without the envelopes. I also have smaller sizes, 5¼ by 3½. And I don't even think I have any left. But what I did want to also show you, I have made templates. I have several for the smaller ones. So if I were to take a collage, let's say I would move it around and see, what would be my most favorite section that I would cut out from there. And I also have the equivalent of, I've made smaller ones also, like with 1/2 inch border, so 3¼ by 4½ if I wanted a smaller size. And I've also made templates for the cardstock. So for example, with an 8-inch border, and then I would do the art piece or the artwork with the 1/2 inch border. So you would get this effect of the cardstock in the back, the artwork on top, and that border effect around. So it sort of gives you like 3 levels of, I'll say, design, the artwork itself, the color from the cardstock, and then the color from the card. I've done the same thing with the larger ones as well. I don't have one for each size yet, but this is the actual 5 by 7. These are the full ones to cut out the cardstock, 6½ by 4¼ So it gives me a 1/4 inch all around. Just makes it a little bit easier. I do like, if something comes out well, to use it up as a card. Sometimes I put them on my Etsy. Sometimes they go in with artwork that I sell as a little thank you gift. This was a suggestion made to me, I may digitize and just have printed cards with the artwork. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on that. But that is what I wanted to tell you about the cards. Oh, and one last thing about the cardstock. I used black here, and it is not cardstock. It is just regular construction paper from the dollar store. And hopefully you can see this. Okay, here we are. Might barely be able to see this, but it is not black through and through. There's a white line on this. And let me, if I move back. Oh, there we go. There is a white line through this, so I will have to edge it with a black felt marker. That is the only thing that's a bit annoying. As opposed to cardstock, this is actual cardstock, and I'm still with the same problem of the camera wanting to focus on the background. Okay, I think you can see the edge here. It is colored through and through, and all cardstock is like that, so you don't have to worry about edging it. There's a place near my house that sells them individually. If not, those are also available on Amazon, but they usually come, and I think at least packages of 25. So I want to put the red on the back of this one. I hesitated. I have a sort of champagne gold color here as well. I'm thinking that might be nice also, so I might do that. Have to think about that a few more minutes. And I just edge it. I just use a Sharpie on mine. I have several, and I always put the artwork back to me, so if I slip, I don't go over it, but I just do the edge, and I'm going to hold it down a bit, so hopefully the camera will focus. And I just go around so I don't get that white line. This is super fussing. This is the intermission perfectionist in me trying to, but it annoys me, and I can see the difference. I can see that now that it's half black and half white on this side, but it's not a big deal, and it doesn't show up that much, so not to worry. It's just a bit tricky in that if you order cardstock, you will wind up with a lot of one color unless you can find open stock at an art store. If not, you will, just use those sheets of construction paper from the dollar store. Then you wind up having to edge them if you're maniacally fussy like me. But I've also found at Dollarama great large sets of Sharpies, and these are mine that I've amassed over time. They come in different sets. I think these 3 came together: the turquoise, the dark blue, and the magenta. And then there were paler ones: the pink, the light blue, and the lavender. And then other ones I've just picked up. And it does look cute when it's backed onto this. Now, I'm going to fuss and figure out, I was looking how I wanted to put these down yesterday, and I think it is going to be somewhat like this, with this perhaps here. Do I want that up here? Do I want it like that? I know at least one person is going to be watching this going, stop there, stop turning it. I think maybe like this. I think that'll be good. I will, I believe, put this champagne colored backing on the back. I think that's cute. There's a bit of shimmer in this. So let me do those. This I could have punched a hole and put a ribbon, put a thread. Maybe next time. Not really big on that. I like my bookmarks super, super flat. Oh, and the other thing I do want to mention, I did not finish these with a varnish. I finished them with liquid glass, and I will show you that. I think this is on my supplies list. I'm not sure. It is dessert. It was sold as liquid glass, but it is, I'm using screen mirroring for the first time. Can you tell? And I'm not very good at it. Um, Acrylic pouring medium. It came as pouring medium. It has a liquid glass effect. Was I pleased with that? Not really. They've gotten on my nerves a few times the last few times I've shopped online with them, but it does give a liquid glass effect. Nice to have that pop of color when it's something small. So, and this is no mixing, right? This isn't like resin where you have to mix two products together. So let me put these together and we will be back in a second with the final product. Okay, I decided to use the champagne colored cardstock, and I have a whole bunch of this and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what possessed me. I ordered like, I think 25 sheets of it off Amazon, but I like this and it is the same on each side, and I let it overlap a bit for the finish. And I glue these down with white glue. It isn't a school glue, it's just Lapage's white glue. It does dry clear. Those of you make Mod Podge, this is, I think, the glue to use when you make Mod Podge. And I keep them in, let me know if you ever want a short video on what I keep my stuff in, but I repurpose, especially these hydrating lotion pots, not necessarily, doesn't have to be this brand, but they have a good cover. They seal well. They seem to be airtight and of course leak proof. So I just keep these. I have a whole plastic bin full of them, and I sometimes use them for paint as well, depending on the viscosity of the paint, and they just are really handy. Otherwise, I usually keep my paint in something like this that is actually used for food. This is off of Amazon. It is intended for this. I have different sizes. I have different, like I said, recipients depending on viscosity of the paint. If I use medium and thin it, whatever, whole different story. So let me put this on. I don't use two-sided tape. A lot of people use two-sided tape. It is nice. It's forgiving. You can lift it off again and replace, but I find it just doesn't stick as well in the long run. Probably if this was more like a paper, it would. But since it's already, I think 140 pounds, I said, watercolor paper plus the cardstock doesn't work as well. So I'm going to put this on. I use a Q-tip, not too much because it'll sink through and show on the other side. Then I just put something over it, like this is sort of a parchment paper, feeling paper that doesn't, has a little bit of a finish to it, doesn't stick to anything. You can use a parchment paper, you can use a regular white sheet of paper, and I just put weight on it. I have actual weights I put on it, but you can use cans or whatever you have on hand.
If any of you have experience with the spray adhesive, I think Gorilla Glue makes one. Let me know in the comments. That might be my next experiment. I love how the glue really keeps it down, as I said, even in the corners. So, if you put this card out, it sits on a dresser or something, it won't start to unpeel, but it is unforgiving. I'm using a sewing tool to measure it down here, and you can see I'm going to fuss with the bottom one. I'm even going to really push it to move it up a little bit, and then have to go in with a damp paper towel and pick up the glue that still shows. So that is the only disadvantage. And you'll also notice on the bookmark, the cardstock on the back is uneven on one side. I'm just going to cut it down afterwards. I find it's easier to glue them on and then cut them down afterwards to the right size, so to make it even all the way around.
Okay, I'm going to set these to dry. I'm going to cover them so they don't get damaged by what I'm going to put on top. This is a little thin. I could put something even heavier over this, which I think is what I'll do. The glue works really well, but it is unforgiving. You saw me struggling down here with this one down here. Make sure this is on camera. This down here because, and I use this is a sewing tool, by the way. Maybe I'll put it in my supplies list, but they're just nice because once you've adjusted with this slide, you don't have to keep remeasuring. It's used, I guess I use it for hemming and sewing. It might have another use as well, maybe putting on, a border and edging of some sort, but a nifty tool. So before this starts to dry too much, I'll put this paper over it, and I'll put this other sheet on top, and I'll put my weights, and we will let that dry. So this is the final product. Quite nice, quite pleased with the way it turned out. And I think above all, what I wanted to show you was that, I keep saying I'm not a watercolor artist. This isn't, necessarily great watercolor, but I do enjoy these practices. And when you do have a section that comes out nicely, you do have options that you can use it for. Here, especially with the gold mica, if you can see this up close. Yeah, I am still in focus. With the gold mica, with the shiny finish. This, of course, the liquid glass, you can just use a high gloss varnish. I am going to do a video on varnishing paintings, but something very glossy on something small like this really makes the colors pop. So it is a lovely card. It has a nice textural effect, a bit of a 3D effect because of the way these are juxtaposed and also because they're quite thick. Of course, comes with its little envelope, so you can offer it as a gift. You can send it off to someone. And first time I make a bookmark, but another interesting way of using up, a watercolor that is especially nice or that has turned out well. Other stuff might get chopped up for a collage, who knows? But this is quite nice too. Just a different sizing, different effect of this long. I think I said the standard bookmark is 6 inches by 2.5 or something roughly around there. So I did use this. Whoops, I have some dust on the back. Whoa. Okay. Okay, we're all good. But yeah, I did use this champagne colored cardstock. So just to encourage you, I keep saying I'm not a watercolor artist. You don't have to be a watercolor artist, but just some ideas. If you have something watercolor that turns out nice, if you have something that is mixed media that turns out nice, or even if you have just another little section, you think, oh, the rest of this, it's pretty okay. Maybe I'll use it as collage or something, but this little section is really cute. Can I do something with that? So, as always, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If you want to see my other watercolor video, I am going to put it here. It is another practice I did this time with flowers in a vase, and they really do pop as well. So, just my little tips and tricks there. Don't hesitate to drop me a comment. Let me know your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter as well. And happy creating. I'll see you in the next one.